Greetings, everyone. This video will have an updated one. I have a number of these gas tanks. So I actually have almost every version. It's just these are the only loose two that I have right now. But someday all of them will be removed from the cars, and then I'll be able to compare most of them side by side like this. But for now, this is a start. So these are these are two very different fuel tanks. And I don't have any of the diesel tanks, so don't even write me about those. I couldn't tell you what the differences are. I don't do the diesel stuff. I only do the gas stuff. And I only do Escort stuff because mechanically they're EXPs. Vice versa. So, anyhow, there's a lot of differences between these. Go over the years, the sending units change a bunch, and whether you have a carbureted car or the EFI cars, the openings for the fuel senders differ a lot. But otherwise, they're all more or less compatible. The top sides of them, they all have to conform to the same exact shape. They go underneath the seat pan where the actual rear bench bun rests. So they all go underneath this. And this is the underside of that. And it's the same on all these cars from the 1981 to 1990. The tops of them all have to conform to this exact shape. So that means when, because starting in 81, you could have the 11-gallon tank or the 13. So you could have one of two tank sizes. And it continued like that, although for many years. Eventually the 13 became standard. But for the first many years, the 11 was the standard size, and then your 13-gallon tank was the optional extra. But they come, in a variety of shapes and styles. They're not really shapes, but they come in a variety of styles. This being from my 1982 convertible, it has a send line and a return line. Oh, I actually had these backwards because the send line is bigger than the return. So it's got a send and a return along with a unique plug-in. This being from an 86 Escort. It only has one send line because this model in particular doesn't have any fuel returns out of the carb, just send. And the 1.6 high outputs are usually like this too. I can't remember if the 1.9 carbs have any returns at all. So I can't remember that. I'll put details in the description if that's the case. But it also has a slightly updated plug. The vent plastic is different, but I'm sure it's compatible. The sending unit hole is the same shape, so they take the same sealing ring along with the same lock ring, and then the sending units you could interchange between these. What I don't know is if the 13-gallon sending unit is different from the 11-gallon one. That's a little bit beyond my head right now, because I couldn't even tell you what size each tank ought to look like. There's a few reasons for that. We flip these over. Like I said, the tops have to conform to the same exact shape. So when they went from the 11-gallon to the 13-gallon, there had to be a change in shape on the bottom because it couldn't be on the top, so it had to be on the bottom or the sides. I can tell you right now that the sides, this side here, it follows the exhaust, so it can't be bigger that direction. The side over here, it's pretty much on the end of the car. It can't really go that direction, so it has to be, extended from the bottom. And that's what this one seems to be like, possibly. I'm not too sure. But on the side here, it seems like that gray one over there has slightly more capacity. But I can't tell for sure. I know this is a replaced fuel tank because the whole rest of the, I'll show you the rest of the car. That when I got the car, that was kind of the only new part on it. The whole entire EXP the convertible one is rough like this. You can see someone had undercoated the original tank because there's no undercoating behind where it sat. That's why it leaves a nice clean shadow. They undercoated everything else, but by then it was too late. The car was already rusting away. So they had to replace the tank, and they put in this one. And it's got nice fresh black paint all over it, aside from scratches from where the strap was on it, and then it scrubbed the ground a few times as I was moving it between storage. Anyhow, so I don't know if that's a genuine Ford one or not, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's not. It might be, say, a 11 or even a 12-gallon tank, and this gray one could be a 13. I believe this gray one is supposed to be a 13. I can't quite tell for sure. Someday I'd love to get around a crap load of water or vinegar or something to run through these guys just to see, how much it takes to fill them. Because I don't really know. It looks like this guy's bigger. This has that added bulge here. So I couldn't quite tell you. What's interesting, we go over to my 82 EXP that has its original fuel tank on it. I've restored every part of the car except the rear fuel tank and the transmission. This is what the this is what the fuel tank looks like. It's got a dent right here, as you can see. That's not supposed to be like that, but you can see this tank is completely flat besides the ribbing. But if so it's just flat. Whereas what my convertible has, it has that kind of like dish or frisbee in the center. That and it hangs down a bunch lower right there. And this 86 one is similar. It's just bigger wide, but not as deep, so it's not as pronounced. But I did find out that the straps on this 86 are the same length as the straps on my EXP convertible here. They're shaped differently, and it's mostly because when you clamp these down, they conform to the shape of the tank. So the shape's not as critical as the length is. If there was if one was an inch longer than the other, that would be the telltale. So what we'll do is we'll go over to another car and see what tank that has. Okay, so here we are with my 81 Escort GL wagon, and you can see it's the exact same as my blue 82 EXP. And my EXP, with that dent in the tank, it only fits exactly 11 gallons, and that's when you fill her up the neck. And that's when you're darn near empty. Otherwise, the most I can ever put in her is about 10.5 or about 10 1/4. But if it's dang near empty, I can fit it almost 11.5. But that's again filling up the entire filler tube. So let's go visit another car, eh? Here is my 81 Escort Wagon L. Same tank as the other 81 Escort. And my 82 EXP. Now this next one, I expect to be a whole lot different. Next one we're going to look at is my 88 wagon. This guy should be a 13-gallon tank. We're going to go on the other side. Because the exhaust goes around the tank on the driver's side. Nothing's really in the way of the exhaust on the passenger side, which means you're able to view it a whole lot easier. So you look up in there, yeah, this one, it looks a lot like my convertible one. It's got that dish, but otherwise it's got ribbing. So I take that back. This one actually seems to be the same as my 86 Escort. And we can actually view the one on my EXP turbo. I presume that to be a 13-gallon tank. But what's on that 88 Escort should most definitely be a 13. So I'm pretty sure that that gray 86 tank that I showed you is a 13. This guy, is the tank even viewable? Look at that, nice flat tank. Another 11-gallon tank, it seems. Yep, I'm gonna say another 11-gallon tank. Okay, so the video wasn't as awesome as I was expecting it to be. I was hoping there'd be a clear and concise difference between the 11-gallon and 13-gallon tanks, and I just don't think there is. So one thing I'll look for is you can still get aftermarket replacement tanks for these cars, but I'm told that the openings for the fuel sending unit are different. But between the EFI and the carbureted ones. But none of my cars have this one, so this is definitely an aftermarket unit. The question is it 11 gallons, 13, or somewhere in between? This one, I'm just going to assume that it's a 13-gallon tank. It seems to sit a little bit lower than what all my other Escorts and EXPs have. Or at least my pre-85s seem to sit a lot lower than that. My pre-85s all seem pretty comparable to this, minus the dish. I'm sure that dish adds about half a gallon. While these, they seem to stick down a whole lot more. I mean, that's relative. I mean, now it's down, but it's up and as far as this view goes. So I'll find out what they are sometime. This guy we're going to be putting into an EXP real soon. My dark blue 82 that was green, it's going to get this fuel tank, because hopefully this is 13 gallons, and we'll find out when we first fill up the car. It should take 13 on the dot or more. I mean, you can store half a gallon in the neck, so they'll fit a bunch. But yeah, that's kind of all I have for you guys at the moment. As I start removing more of these, I'll have more a better comparison video out for these. And then same with the sending units. There's a lot of sending unit differences between the years, and then the EFI versus carb stuff. There's a lot of differences between those that we'll eventually look into and address. But anyhow, yeah, sadly that's all I have for you guys. I know it's nothing concrete, and there's not really much for telltales for you yet, but we'll get there someday.